Today we have a Song Dae-yoon and Jimin rumor that's really picking up steam as a little bit more has come out about it. We have people saying that Jimin has been petitioned to leave BTS and why people are doing that. And then we have people believing that the label has addressed something. Say dumplings, it's Dave Disci. Let's get into it. It was very interesting to wake up to a lot of backlash for Jimin, and there were quite a few layers to this backlash, which I definitely thought was very interesting. First off, people noticed that there was a lot of people who had contributed to the wildfire efforts in South Korea. Of course, there was a lot of K-pop idols that had contributed, like G-Dragon as well as IU. However, among all of the BTS members, it seemed like all of the members had contributed except for Jimin. So all of the members except Jin had contributed financially, minus Jimin allegedly, and then Jin apparently was volunteering by serving food. In times like this, I can understand there's a lot of anger or hatred with how the world is happening right now, or what is happening in the world. And when you see people who have the ability to just change living situations like the BTS members would, I can totally understand people getting really upset and resentful. For example, if BTS had their home set ablaze, they obviously can just fly to another city and afford to indefinitely live in a hotel or a nice mansion and rent that for however long they want to. While of course people like you and me would struggle a little bit more to do something like that. We can't just up and leave where we're living because most of us can probably barely afford to be where we are currently living, let alone be able to afford somewhere else. So a lot of people believe that all of the members had contributed in some shape or form, and Jimin was the only one that did not contribute at all. Now, he could have contributed silently, and we don't know, while all of the other members could have contributed in a more public way. But I definitely think it's interesting to attack someone for not contributing, allegedly. Jimin has been very open about his contributions to various different things, sometimes with children and various other philanthropic work. So when you hear that he hasn't contributed to something like this, it makes me believe that there is a misunderstanding there, because why wouldn't he contribute to something like this? But also we have to consider when someone doesn't contribute financially, and they usually do, could there be an underlying reason for them not being able to afford it? Now, we can assume that someone like him probably does make a lot more money and is doing well financially, but we can also assume that since he has contributed to a lot of different things, he might not have the funds to contribute to something like this. It's just very interesting that people automatically jump to the conclusion that he's a bad person for not contributing when he's obviously contributed so much and has donated so much of his money to various other things. But there was also this other claim that I thought was interesting, where people were mentioning that he needs to address this, or the label needs to address this, or whatever it is, because it's contributing to the defamation of other members in the group, making the group look bad as a whole. I have scoured the internet to really figure out what the backlash with Jimin was, because I was seeing Jimin trending and I wasn't quite sure why, and no one was mentioning contributing to wildfires. They weren't mentioning that that was what they were upset about. They just said he didn't contribute, and I was like, contribute to what? So I definitely had to do a lot of research to figure this out, and in my research I had not seen anyone upset at the other BTS members because Jimin allegedly didn't donate. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous to say that. And one person's action does not mean the whole group is in trouble or should be in trouble. People now want him out of the group because they think that he's now made the group look bad, when in reality, anyone with half a brain likely would not care. And two, if they had been receiving these huge, generous donations from the other members, then the people who are receiving the donations probably would be fine, because these are not small donations, and those other donations would cover it. People will make up their own assumptions to things, which I definitely find to be very interesting. Why on earth would you assume the negative thing about someone rather than giving them a chance? You know, that's something that I will never understand, and likely comes from a place of hating that person, that they're just taking the first opportunity to bash them whenever they can. But of course, the part that I don't understand is why there is so much hatred going on, and why in a time of need and in a time where we're all hurting and we're all struggling, do we not approach things with empathy? It's really important to show humanity at times like this, because we're all struggling. I mean, groceries here in New York are so expensive. I've had some days where I've only eaten 2 meals instead of 3. And I've never been super well off, but I wasn't always struggling until more recently. So if I'm struggling, I know that there are definitely a lot of people who are struggling too. And I say this because at times like this, I don't like coming online and reading all of the hate comments, whether about me or whether about someone that I like, which is why I've stopped reading a lot of them. And it doesn't really help the world right now in general when people see comments like that. The last thing that people want is when hopping online to find an escape to see a bunch of hate comments and people attacking them or attacking those who they love. And of course, I'll just say one more thing about this, which is if someone finds something that they enjoy and they really love, but then if they open the comments and see a bunch of people hating against it, they're going to be less inclined to enjoy that thing and just be happy because they're almost feeling like they need to feel guilty about liking something. But in reality, that happiness that we feel when we find something that we like is so rare nowadays that we should just let people enjoy whatever they want to enjoy. And of course, when I hop online and I see a lot of hate surrounding a dating rumor, I tend to find it even more discouraging. Because if two people are dating and they're in a relationship together and they're happy, then let them be happy rather than trying to attack them and make them feel guilty about being in a relationship with whoever. But of course, no relationship has actually existed today. We're just talking about the rumors here. Some people were talking about this idea that the recent Song Dae-eun and Jimin dating rumors were kind of resurfacing. And the reason why people were talking about this is because it seemed like she gave an update to this and really talked about the rumors a bit more, which we'll get into a little bit. But a lot of people had continuously believed that the two were in a relationship just simply on the fact that apparently the label had never denied this rumor. People were saying that the V and Jennie rumors were never denied, and they believed that this was confirmed to be true. Not me believing that, but just the general people believing that. So they believe since Jimin and Song's rumors were never denied by the label either, that must be true too. Now, there are many reasons why a label can choose to go silent on something, and typically the reason is because they don't know the answer, nor do they think that it's any of their business to answer something like that. There's a good chance that that was never brought up with Jimin, like the rumor, nor were the rumors big enough to the point where Jimin had an issue. For example, a label typically might not respond to a rumor unless they feel like the rumor is going to affect sales or the artist's comeback or any of that sort of stuff. Meanwhile, it seemed more of the backlash was going towards her rather than Jimin himself. So the label really had no business to step in because I don't believe that Song is part of HYBE. And you might think that that's weird, like why can't a label just come out and address the rumor anyway? But a label can't come out and talk about an artist that's not within their label, or an actress in this case. That has to be the job of her company to do that. And actually, I couldn't find out what company she was in. So if you guys know, definitely let me know. Now, the reason why this rumor started to resurface was because Song came on social media to talk about how she has not been so active on social media recently for several months. And one of the reasons why was because she was taking legal action on the malicious comments. And I'm sure she also didn't want to see them. So specific comments of people who were targeting just her, because as I said, Jimin wasn't getting much backlash, but she was. Some people still didn't believe this, and some people were still going online to say that the rumors of her dating Jimin were true because she was on a live stream recently and the name Jimin kept appearing on the live stream over and over again. And the comments were saying Jimin as if he was walking into the room. So it was just like Jimin with an exclamation point. And some people believe that the rumors were true because Song was going in and manually deleting the comments on live, allegedly, specifically ones that just said his name. Now, I thought some of these posts were a little bit weird. I'm not necessarily saying that she did do this or she didn't do this, but I'm saying it was a little bit strange because there was one video in which it looked like she deleted a comment and then she was scrolling up to check if there were more comments that mentioned Jimin, except we could see the scroll that she was doing. And that is typically not visible for us viewers. That seems like it would have been recorded from her end, like it would have been a screen recording from her end in the stream. Does that make sense? Which of course to me would not make sense because why would she release her screen recording? Or how would that get released? To show that she was deleting these comments? I'm not entirely sure why that would come out. Now, if she was deleting these comments, I don't know how on earth that proves that she is in a relationship with him, because obviously she now wants to distance herself from him and really ditch, and this is really her last ditch effort to try to do that, which is trying to censor the comments so that people will stop saying it. It's really strange to assume that deleting a comment with a specific word or name means that she's in a relationship with him. It's crazy what people will assume, and she's kind of mentioned this in her recent talk about the lawsuit, where she says that the narrative that everyone is making is not a narrative that she has been pushing, but ones that everyone else seems to want to be true. Let me know what you think. Make sure you check out Patreon for more videos, link down below. Thank you to this lovely comment right here. Love you, bye.